Hey guys, this is a 1991 GMC Cyclone. Pretty rare vehicle for the 90s. They made less than 3,000 examples of these. There's not very many running around. They only made these trucks in black. They kind of hold a special place in my heart. A buddy of mine in college had one of these, and growing up with that truck, it always made me really want one. Recently I was able to acquire one. It was actually in a field in West Texas. Mine's pretty stock. You'll see it later on in one of these videos. So this is a good friend of mine, Derek's truck. It's a pretty built truck. It's definitely not stock. This is Derek. Pleasure to meet you, sir. Thanks for coming. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about the truck. So what are your goals with the truck? What kind of power does it make? What do you think it's going to run today using draggy?
Probably right now it's turned down about 500, maybe high 10, something like that. Turned up should make around 700. We're currently going for the stock block record, which is right now at 982, I believe.
So what's the setup on? What size turbo, injectors, fuel choice, things like that?
It's on the 85. It's got a billet 64, 66, fully forged motor, filled block, just pretty much everything you can do to them right now.
And what's your best time in the truck?
Right now 10.6.
That's pretty quick for these trucks. These trucks have the 4.3 liter that's, it's in a lot of GM vehicles, but this is a pretty early one. The factory casting of these didn't have heads. They were kind of crappy. So a lot of guys put the later model Vortec 4.3 heads on it. And then the cracks have a little, or the blocks, they like to crack a lot. So a lot of guys will fill them with concrete. Is this truck filled?
Yes.
So yeah, it's filled. A lot of guys think you lose some cooling with that, which you do a little bit, but he still drives his truck quite a bit. I actually seen it this year down at TX2K. That's where I ran into him. He drives his truck a lot. So for those of you out there that are in the Cyclones, I wouldn't let filling the block scare you. It's the only way you can really take a 4.3 and make big power unless you're doing the bow tie block. So we're pretty excited to see what this car will do, and we'll see what we can do. Thanks for coming, sir.
Thank you.
So in 1991, Acura, Honda, they brought the NSX to the United States. It was a 3-liter V6, and oddly enough, out of all the cars that we tested, it was the only one that did not have turbos. Also, it was the most exotic looking car of all these cars. Still today, you see an Acura NSX on the road, a lot of people don't know what it is. They think it may be a Ferrari or something like that. It's a special car in the JDM car culture because it is the NSX. It is special. It's high revving, it stops good, it looks great. Some of these cars don't have power steering. They did that for weight. I think they produced this car from 91 to 2005. Somewhere in the early 2000s, it got a facelift. It went from pop-up headlights to projector lights. And then I think in 95 or 96, they started doing these cars with a removable top. There's a couple different variants you could get. I know they made an NSX-R. Now, I don't know the ins and outs, but I know Kong will. If Kong wants to step in, he'll tell us a little bit more about his car. Thanks for bringing it out and running it. So tell us all there is to know about the NSX, because I'm not an NSX guy.
Well, the NSX, it kind of changed the supercar world, or changed all car worlds. Before, it's like if you get a Ferrari or something, good luck. You know, a lot of maintenance. Drive it once in a while and have it worked on constantly. They kind of got with Senna and said we want to make, Honda came out and said we want to make something that's reliable, that drives well, it's balanced, it's everything in it. When you get in one of these cars, you kind of go, it's smooth, it's so balanced.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, this car, squeaks less than, this car is, what, 30 years old, and it squeaks less than some of my newer cars that are, have less miles.
Sure.
And so the thing is so well built, so solid, the engine's so smooth. And at first, I came from the drag racing world, so at first you get into the car and you're like, man, I think I want more power. But then you take it around the road course or you do something like that, and you're like, okay, it's actually pretty fast, pretty smooth.
So how much power does the factory NSX motor hold? Now, isn't there something about, like, they're coated differently, like a Nicosil coating or something like that with the cylinder walls? Or...
They've done a lot of cool things with this engine. So it's a race engine that they've done a lot of things to. So it's got titanium rods from the factory. Wow. It's got it's a high revving engine, so they've done all kinds of things to handle the RPMs. I have one NSX that has 200,000+ miles on it. It's stock,
really,
and it's reliable. It runs smooth. Everything is wonderful with it.
That's awesome.
So it's they're great cars. It's not uncommon to hear of an NSX with 200,000+ miles on it that still drives and runs.
It's that Honda reliability.
Yeah, it is. This car is great in 1990.
Right.
The 3.2 liter came out and made 290.
Okay.
That's still not enough power.
Right.
So nowadays we're all, turbo technology is so good that We, if you turbocharge one of these, you can make 380 to 420 very reliably, and the car is magnificent. Built in to do some minor things, and you can get 450 to 550 pretty reliably, and you know, drive the car daily, race it. And to me, that's the perfect car.
Yeah, so you're getting modern car performance with 90s looks in a car that a lot of people don't know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to be using draggy tomorrow. So what kind of times do you think this thing will turn?
1370s to 1420s, right in that range, depending on how the surface is.
Correct.
If I'm willing to launch it, how hard.
And this car is stock? It just has wheels?
This car has wheels on it, and then I did do a catback exhaust on it.
So minimal mods.
Yeah, minimal mods. It's, I mean, nothing for power really.
Right.
So I did it because this car at 600 horsepower is awesome.
And they sound phenomenal. Your Y car that's turbocharged sounds, I mean, it sounds exotic. It sounds like a Ferrari or a Lambo, you know? I mean, it's awesome. So if you think it's going to run somewhere in the high 13s, low 14s, obviously you never know in that condition on that road, because obviously, you know, we're doing non-prep surfaces, non-professional drivers, everyday guys that drive these cars. So, you know, we may not get the times that Motor Trend said we should run, but Colin's been racing a very long time. He's a great wheelman. So if anybody's going to do it, I think he's going to be the one that gets as close to the magazine numbers as we can. So I'm pretty anxious to see how he does tomorrow. So, hey, well, appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Hey guys, this is Daniel's car. He lives in northern Oklahoma. It's the extremely stock Virgin Supra that I was telling you guys about. This car is bone stock to the air filter. Some of you guys may actually know this car. This car was the focal point of a Jalopnik article about a dealership that raffled off of a car. And Daniel actually ended up with the car after the raffle was over. I don't know the exact details, but Daniel will step in and he'll tell us a lot more about it. But this is Daniel. He's a good friend of mine. I've known him for probably 7 to 10 years now. And hey, good having you, sir.
Thanks, man.
So tell us about the whole Jalopnik thing and the article and the raffle and the dealership and how all that went down.
Okay, so this car was a donation from the original owner. He was real old in age. He got diagnosed with terminal cancer. He donated the car to the dealership in order to raffle it off for a charity. So after they raffled it off, the general manager's wife won the car.
Oh, that's a coincidence, right?
So it was very scrutinized in the whole industry. I mean, they tore this dealership apart for it. And they tried listing it on eBay to sell it. They tried selling it on their lot. They tried getting rid of it. They could not get rid of it. So another guy that I know had a mutual friend that ended up with the car. I was looking for one, and they ended up saying, I have this perfect, immaculate bone stock Supra, which is what I wanted. And I drove there sight unseen and paid for it. As we were doing a walk around, we were talking about the raffle, and he was like, it's funny you bring that up because this is that car. I actually entered into that raffle and lost, unfortunately, but I still ended up with the car. I've had it for almost 2 years now, right at, and I think it's time to finally rip it open and go single.
So we're doing like built motor, like 67, 66, what kind of setup are we talking?
We have everything to go single BorgWarner S366.
That's a good turbo.
We're gonna do built auto transmission. Probably gonna go with ATF since they're just leaps and bounds.
They work.
We're gonna do AEM V2 and probably Powerhouse Racing manifold and
E85 injectors.
Yes, and we're gonna do a Greddy 3-row.
Perfect. I mean, so I had a pretty similar setup on my green car back in the day. It had a 67, 66, and we made a little over 700, and the car trapped 140 in the quarter. So I think you'll really enjoy the car at that power level.
And actually, your burnout video is the one that wanted me. I mean, that's what made me want an automatic. A lot of people hate the automatics, but that's what made me want an auto to begin with.
Man, it works. Autos work. I mean, between my car, maybe like Baltic Supra, he's on the stock A430 or 340. So I mean, his car just works. So that's awesome. You got big plans for the car. It's kind of, you know, another stock Supra that's going to be taken down to a modification level. But hey, it's your car and you got to enjoy it.
Right.
I appreciate you bringing it.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, sir. So on Colin's white car that we're going to be testing, it's a small turbo built motor car. Don't know a lot about it, but it's pretty damn quick and it sounds phenomenal. So obviously it probably has the ceiling to make a lot more power, but it's a street car. I think, what do you keep it around, 300-400 wheel?
This one I have it right now just at 400.
And what turbo's on it?
It's an old 35.
On these cars, I mean, where do you guys put the turbo? Are they tucked underneath or up on top?
It depends. So there are kits that you can do twin turbo.
Oh wow!
And that's pretty cool. One company makes it, and it's neat because it puts it up higher, and the oil drain back's a little bit better.
You
It's
don't
how
have
Honda
to have a
was.
scavenge pump or anything like that.
This particular car, we have turbo located up higher, so it drains oil back better, and so it doesn't require a scavenge pump. And on the white one, we did the same thing.
Now this is the car you race in the Optima series, right?
Correct. So this car is in an Optima series. So it's a wide body NSX. I had to boost up a little bit higher on this one, so we turned it up. We have 335 tires on the rear that fit under it, don't stick out. It's not really stance or anything. I don't do that. The front, we have, you know, bigger fenders and 275s. This Comptech wide body kit. So it's a great car, but I'm competing against, you know, new cars that have
yeah, you know, that's
800,000.
kind of the premise of this video. This car fits it. I mean, we're taking old cars with modern day technology, ethanol fuels, and billet wheel turbos, and we're competing against the newest cars in the market, just to show you what these great 90s cars were capable of. So what kind of power does this car make?
This car has made as much as 7.
Okay.
Right now, I'm working on it a little bit, so I usually race it around 550 to 600 area.
So you kind of got one of everything. You got a stock one. You got the white one in the 400 range, and you got this one that can, you know, the ceiling is 700, but you keep it around 500. Right. So it sounds like you got the best of everything on the, you know, NSX world. So tomorrow we're going to be testing your white car. What do you think it's going to run? Well, because you're going to be racing, right?
I'm going to be racing, so I'm going to be out of town. So my good friend Chris is going to run it for me, and he hasn't driven that car or cars like that, so he asked not to crank it up too much, so I'm probably going to set it at 400. Yeah, just, you know, have the boot, so it may be a touch laggy, but that'll be good, so it doesn't hit hard on them and
makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, we're going to do your red car, then you got to get out of there to go road race, right?
Yeah, I've got a race to get to. So, so hopefully he enjoys it and hopefully has a good time with it.
Has it ever been down the quarter mile?
No, I haven't, because not that setup. I haven't, because that was a car that we kind of took it, and it was a higher mile car, and we went through everything.
So is that the one you were talking about that has over like 200,000 miles?
Yeah, it had 200,000 miles on it. The engine was great, no problems at all, and we said, let's take it apart and put a turbo on it, and let's do some things. So I built a motor for it and all that, because it's such a good car. And that one's a Targa, so it's a little bit heavier. It's 96, so 95, 96 cars are a little bit heavier, and they came with a 3.0. They hadn't gone to the 3.2 yet. So the 3.2s added 20 horsepower and the 6-speed and so on. This car, 95s, 96s were known to be a little bit slower because they had the old engine, but they were a little bit heavier.
95, 96, they're converting over to OBD2 emissions during that time too.
Correct. Right in that period, there's OBD2. Yeah. There's a lot of things up in the air about that.
Yeah, because it's crazy, and I don't know if you guys know, but in 95, 96, we lost a lot of really cool cars. The 300ZX was ceased production in 96, the Dodge Stealth in 96, you lost the RX7 in 95. I mean, the government was coming in and cracking down on all these turbos, cars with turbos and the emissions, so a lot of these guys, they couldn't make their cars meet emission standards, so you lost them. You know, you kept the NSX, the 3000 GT, and the Supra, but the rest of the cars kind of got put on the chopping block. Now, I know in the Supra world in 96, I always get it mixed up, I'm sure you guys will correct me, but it was either you didn't get an automatic transmission or you didn't get a manual transmission in 96. One was not offered because it didn't pass OBD2 emissions. So in 95 and 96, when that happened, it changed the way that car manufacturers had to do things. So it's pretty crazy to think that the government came in and said, you're going to have to put these emission standards, these extra catalytic converters on it, and so the manufacturers just walked away from these projects. The RX7 was only a 93, 94, 95 model year in the United States, so it's pretty crazy when you start talking about emissions. So Chris is going to drive the car, and anxious to see what it'll do. The NSX obviously is going to be a pretty cool car to see it go down the road, and hopefully you guys enjoy this, and thanks for having your cars, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to talk about epic 90s cars without the RX7. It's the only car out here without pistons. I mean, it's got 2 rotors in it. For you guys that don't know what a rotary is, it's a 1.3 liter engine that actually injects oil into the cycle with fueling from the factory. A lot of people like to call them triangles of fury or the Doritos of power. So they're a pretty epic engine. They can make really, really big power with not a lot of displacement. They're a phenomenal engine. Some of these cars are running in the low 6-second quarter-mile times, obviously in Pro Mod chassis configurations, but they're very quick. This is Shelby's car. It's a bone stock 93 RX7. She's a good friend of ours. She lives here local. She's going to tell us a little bit about this car and where it came from. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Jared.
No problem.
So this is a 93 RX7. I bought it from the original owner, who is the nephew of Andy Warhol. His name is James Warhola. Andy dropped the A off of his last name in order to sound better. He eventually died in '87. The hospital was actually at fault.
Oh, wow.
So eventually his family settled. They settled out of court in '92. James, who was his dad, was the eldest brother. Andy was the middle of 3 brothers. His dad gave him some money. James was given $30,000 to buy a brand new car. And James, being the artist that he is, he's like, I looked at Supras, I looked at 300ZXs, I looked at everything from this time period. And I bought an RX7 because it was the prettiest.
Yep, they're awesome cars. So what are your plans for it?
I think for right now, it's maybe to be preserved. My priorities are different now.
I can't wait to see it run, and I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
Obviously, the car behind me, most are familiar with. It's a 93.5 Premier Edition Supra. Pretty special car. To find a stock 90s import is pretty tough. To find a stock Supra is even tougher. Brian's a good friend of ours. I've known him for a long time. He kind of shares the same passions as I do with the 90s imports. He kind of collects them. He's also the same guy that, obviously, in the video that we did prior, would be the World Rally Car GT4. This is his Supra. It's got an exhaust and pretty much wheels, and that's it. Brian, if you want to come and tell us a little bit more about the car. I don't know what his plans are, but I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Good seeing you.
Hey, so tell us what you're planning to do with this. You're going to keep it stock, or you're going to go crazy with it?
Actually, so I found it completely stock. Didn't have exhaust, didn't have wheels, but you know, we all like the sound of a Supra, so I decided to throw an exhaust on it, the HK's titanium exhaust. The wheels, Buddy was selling them and decided to take it off his hands, kind of preserve the stock wheels, you know, all that good stuff, but it's going to stay the way it is, though, pretty much.
And this car is a 6-speed car, right?
Yes.
So Daniel, he has the other black Supra that we're going to be featuring in this video. His was an auto car, so we're kind of anxious to see what the difference between a 6-speed car and an auto car is. Obviously, how many miles are on your car?
74,000.
So there's a little bit of mileage. I think Daniel's got like 140 or 150 on his. So obviously, what we're trying to do with these videos is show what these cars did stock, and then what 20 years have done to these cars, stock and modified. So this is an extremely great example of a 6-speed Supra. It still has the Get Track 6-speed in it. So what kind of times do you think it's going to run?
Well, I mean, they're supposed to run 13s, but I've never launched this car personally, especially with these wheels. But we'll see what we can do.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.